What's the harsh reality no one accepts? Some parents just don't love their children. I was reading an article about 10 things therapists don't tell you, and one of them was that many parents admit they don't love their children. This one scares me. As to why it scares me, when my son was born, he was more a stranger in my house, and it was not a love at first sight. I was happy to some extent, but never felt like you see in movies. I talked with therapists and be reading about it here and there. Not uncommon for dads to have to work on bonding with newborns. Son is now 10 months and much improved on bonding. But you always kind of judge how you initially reacted and if that's who you really are, etc. It would help if people actually gave a thought into having kids and didn't just have them because it's what you're supposed to do. They're increasingly doing so. That's why birth rates are dropping like stones around the world. On a less dark but related note, your parents definitely have a favorite child. Can confirm. As an only child, I know for a fact the favorite was the dog. You don't always keep the good friends you meet, but that doesn't mean you can't make more later on down the road. From the BoJack Horseman finale, and something I've realized and made peace with. I think there are people that help you become the person that you end up being, and you can be grateful for them, even if they were never meant to be in your life forever. Keep your good friends. You become the average of the company you keep. Some people just can't be saved. You could give them every benefit in the world and they still could choose to throw it all away, and you can't do anything about it. This is a tough lesson to learn. People have to want to change. Nothing you can do can make people change if they are resistant to it. This hurts, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I work with children who have suffered immense trauma and abuse. Far worse than you can imagine. I work with them when they're teens, and they've started to utilize coping mechanisms that society would deem to be poor, despite the fact those coping mechanisms have kept them alive. They may steal, lie, run away, take drugs, etc. They do it because no one has made them feel like they're worth believing in. Statistically, these children, when they become adults, are likely to not have jobs, have healthy relationships, or even have a home. It isn't a choice, they simply don't believe in themselves enough to think they're worth the effort. It isn't benefits they need, it's love. Very few people truly accept their mortality, and most of the time when it truly sinks in, people get scared and want to avoid it. Shit keeps me up at night sometimes with a dread swelling in my stomach. I feel mine in my heart. It's that thought of just being over, gone, no longer experiencing. Good, bad, just experiencing. My heart starts to race, I get cold sweats, my stomach drops, my chest feels like it is sinking into itself, and feels like panic setting in. I have to force myself to go do something just to make it stop. Mistakes do define you. The little ones don't, but if you make a big mistake, it will alter your life to an extent. Saying that they don't matter is a lie that will prevent you from diagnosing life problems later down the line. This is something I wrestle with a lot in terms of my recovery from alcoholism. I quit young, at 24, and have been sober 7 years without relapse. Despite that accomplishment, I have alcoholic neuropathy, nerve damage, that will never go away no matter how long I'm sober. I've always thought it's not the mistake that defines you in most cases, but how you handle it that does. There's a few like murder that can definitely define you though. First impressions are a very fucking big deal. They can be. My partner is on the road a lot for his job. This particular week he was away with one of the big bosses of the company. Everyone in the office knew the big boss was traveling with my partner in the car. My partner got a call from a customer and had to ring the office to finalize the sale all via the car kit. Office guy picks up the phone. "Yeah, what do you want?" in a super uninterested and gruff voice. Needless to say, he left a lasting impression. Seems like it's not that important, but in a workplace that kind of thing stands out. Hard work doesn't always pay off. Something I learned my first week in the corporate world, and again even up until all the coronavirus layoffs. A non-executive's value to the company is strictly dictated by which side of the balance sheet their compensation falls. Pain is inescapable. Not even acknowledging that pain is inevitable and preparing for it ahead of time can lessen it. You will be taken by surprise, you will be hurt, you will not enjoy it, you will not be able to numb it, and there is nothing you can do except take it on the chin. I guess I should add, It's true you can prepare yourself to experience certain kinds of pain and lessen its impact. But when I said this, I meant that eventually something was going to come up that you never prepared for and cause pain anyway. Just didn't do a good job of making that clear, sorry. Oh, and yes, pain can also bring about growth. I don't disagree with that at all. I am reminded of an iconic quote from Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, and I paraphrase. I have discovered why humans laugh. Not because there is a levity, but because there is a wrongness. Humans laugh because something is wrong. Some people just don't get a happy ending. Some people never find happiness or satisfaction. People tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but for some people there isn't. They never get to see any light, just darkness. Yeah, I once lived with someone like that. She was in her 70s, 80s, and I rented a room in her house for a few months. She was truly miserable. She told me about how she grew up in Turkey with an absent father, an abusive alcoholic mother. She told me how she escaped her overbearing family by marrying an Indian diplomat. Then how her husband abused her for years. She was missing teeth because of it. Then when her family moved to Canada, how she worked for years for her husband and kids with no thanks. By the time I moved in with her, she was all alone, living in low-income housing, yelling at her kids on the phone once a week about how they are terrible children who never visit, and ranting to me about how terrible her life had been and how many regrets she had. She was an awful person to be around, but it was clear she had lived a life full of suffering. There's a group of people out there in the world that would be very happy to see you every day and love you and accept you for exactly who you are. You'll probably just never meet them. All human beings are capable of being viciously immoral. There's a point where we can be forced or force ourselves to become completely animalistic. We can perpetrate murder and genocide, as just one example, and if justified to ourselves correctly, we will feel no remorse. We like to think that the only people capable of such horror are a minority, but the truth is that we are all capable of it given the right circumstances. There is a Star Trek film that deals with this. Nemesis. Basically, a clone of one of the virtuous characters shows up hellbent on destroying humanity. The captain pleads with him at one point, saying that the man he is couldn't possibly do the things he is. He is better than that. His blood is better than that. The villain responds, he is what his life has made him. There are no single women in your area willing to meet you. Those bastards lied to me. You will likely be lost to history. In just a few centuries, nobody will remember or even knew you existed. Sad, I know, but you just have to accept it. Just make sure to dab or do a handstand or something dumb when a volcano goes off to give archaeologists a good laugh a couple hundred or so years later. People refuse to accept that this is the reality. Lots of time and money is spent cushioning that blow. We live here. We live now. Best get used to it. Us first world citizens have it much better than we think we have it. And people say they care. But the vast majority just want to go have happy hour on the patio and put it out of their mind. Caring about politics is something I think is very necessary, but it's incredibly mentally taxing. I wish I could go back to being ignorant about it. People who don't give a fuck seem far happier with the state of the world. But once you start paying attention, you realize how politics connect everything. You realize how politics affects your job, your salary, your healthcare. It isn't really possible to go back to not noticing it. Living in the third world my entire life. I don't know if it's they trying to be polite or just they really don't know how bad shit can get, but whenever I talk to a Canadian or a Swiss how their countries sound like utopias to me, they start listing all the reasons that their country is actually shit, for reasons like that one time a cashier forgot to give their change. That huge political scandal involving a politician that used a pink tie instead of the usual gray, and of course, that one murder case that happened 5 years ago. God, I wish my country had those kind of problems. Maybe that's why people are so hostile to illegal immigrants. They simply can't imagine how bad shit can really be since they lived their entire lives on almost perfect societies. People in first world countries defecate in cleaner water than most others in the world drink. Nobody is truly selfless, and that's okay. That it's more likely to succeed if born rich than if you born talented. As someone who grew up wealthy and was supported by parents until age 20, I have to agree with this. Of course, people work hard to get to where they are, but having a safety net helps, as does early advantages like being in extracurriculars, good schools, etc. Sometimes you are the problem in a relationship. And if people keep on leaving you, it may well be your fault. Even if you don't feel like it is. There is no karma. Bad things happen to good people. Bad people do bad things that never catch up to them. Good people do good things that screw them over in the long run. It's all random. You're the bad guy in someone's story, so many of your enemies will never admit to doing anything wrong, but the thing is, either will you in some situations. People justify their own behavior to themselves. That's why so many people can't apologize and double down on the shitty things they do. People can just simply fall out of love with you for no reason. You fretting about whether it's you or something else, or the investment is basically you giving them the reasons to strengthen the reason why they stopped loving you. When they could very much not have a reason at all, feelings and priorities can change. People like to be lied to. They don't like finding out they've been lied to. Pikachu is a slave. What's the harsh reality no one accepts? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.